In 161 AD, a man became the most powerful person on earth. He commanded the largest army in the world. He ruled over 70 million people. He had access to every pleasure, every luxury, every distraction imaginable. And yet, every single morning before the rest of the world woke up, he sat alone in the darkness and he wrote, not orders, not military strategy, not political decrees. He wrote reminders to himself, notes about how to be a better human being, how to control his anger, how to remain humble, how to face suffering without breaking. That man was Marcus Aurelius. And those private writings became one of the most read books in human history, Meditations. Here's what's remarkable. Marcus Aurelius never intended those words to be read by anyone but himself. There was no audience, no followers, no likes or views. He was writing because he knew the greatest battle any human being faces is not on a battlefield. It's inside their own mind, every single day, and the weapon he used to win that battle. A philosophy called Stoicism, a set of daily habits and practices that over 2,000 years later are more relevant than ever. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 7 Stoic daily habits that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus practiced, and how you can start implementing them starting tomorrow morning. Stay with me until the end because the last habit is the one most people overlook, and it might be the most powerful of all. Before we dive into the habits, let's take 3 minutes to understand what Stoicism actually is, because there's a common misconception I want to clear up right away. Stoicism is not about suppressing your emotions. It's not about being cold, distant, or indifferent. The word stoic in popular culture has come to mean someone who simply doesn't feel things. That's not it at all. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius, Meditation Stoicism is a philosophy of action. It was founded in Athens around 300 BC by a man named Zeno of Citium, and it was refined over centuries by brilliant minds Epictetus, a former slave who became one of history's greatest philosophers, Seneca, an advisor to emperors, and Marcus Aurelius himself, who proved that you could sit at the peak of worldly power and still choose wisdom over ego. The core of Stoic philosophy can be summarized in one idea that sounds deceptively simple. The central Stoic idea: there are things within your control, your thoughts, your choices, your responses, your character. And there are things outside your control, other people, external events, outcomes, the past, the future. Stoicism teaches you to pour your full energy into the first category and to make peace with the second. That's it, 2 columns. Everything in life falls into one of them. But here's the thing, intellectually understanding this is easy. Actually living by it, that requires daily practice. That requires habits, which brings us to why this video exists. The Stoics weren't armchair philosophers, they were practitioners. Every one of the great Stoics had a set of daily rituals, exercises they performed, questions they asked themselves, disciplines they maintained. These weren't optional, they were non-negotiable. Because they knew that without practice, philosophy is just words on a page. So let's get into it. 7 habits. Let's begin with the morning. 1 sunrise habit. 1 the morning review. Set your compass before the world spins. Imagine starting every day by deciding, before a single email arrives, before a single notification pings, exactly who you want to be that day. This is what the Stoics called the morning review, and Marcus Aurelius practiced it religiously. Seneca described this practice in his letters. He wrote that each morning, a person of wisdom should briefly meditate on what lies ahead, not with anxiety, but with clear-eyed preparation. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 2. Notice what he's doing here. He's not being pessimistic, he's being prepared. He's acknowledging that people will frustrate him today and choosing in advance not to let that shake him. The modern morning review is simple. Before you look at your phone, before you check the news, before you open social media, you spend 5 to 10 minutes doing 3 things. 1, set your intention. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not what tasks you want to complete, who you want to be. Patient, disciplined, present, generous. 2, anticipate your obstacles. Think about what challenges today is likely to bring. A difficult meeting, a frustrating commute, a conversation you've been avoiding, see them coming. 3, choose your response in advance. The Stoics believed that the gap between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. By mentally rehearsing your response to difficulty, you widen that gap. This takes less than 10 minutes. You don't need a special journal. You don't need an app. You need stillness and honesty. And here's what the research now confirms, 2,000 years after Marcus Aurelius. People who engage in intentional morning reflection report significantly higher levels of emotional resilience, lower reactivity to stress, and greater clarity of purpose throughout the day. The Stoics figured this out without any neuroscience. That tells you something about the depth of their wisdom. Your practice tomorrow morning, before your phone, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Ask yourself 3 questions. Who do I want to be today? What challenges am I likely to face? How will I respond with virtue? 2. Skull habit. 2. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. I want to talk about death, not in a morbid way. Not to frighten you, but because the Stoics believed, and I think they were absolutely right, that our inability to honestly confront our own mortality is one of the primary reasons we waste so much of our lives. Memento mori, 2 Latin words. They mean, remember that you will die. In ancient Rome, when a general returned from a great victory and paraded through the streets of Rome to thunderous applause, a servant would stand behind him in his chariot, whispering in his ear, Memento mori, remember you are mortal, remember this will pass, remember you are not a god. Why? Because they understood something that modern culture tries desperately to deny, that death is not the enemy of a good life, forgetting about death is. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Marcus Aurelius, think about the last week of your life, how much of it was genuinely, deeply lived. How much was spent on things that, when you are old and looking back, will seem utterly inconsequential. Now think about this. You have a finite number of mornings left. You don't know the number. It could be 20,000. It could be 200. Every single one of them is a choice about how to spend a portion of your one and only life. Memento mori isn't about being depressed. It's about being awake. It's about shaking yourself out of the comfortable sleepwalking that passes for modern life. The practice each morning, or when you feel yourself getting upset over something trivial, ask this single question. If I knew this was one of my last days, would this thing I'm upset about even matter? Most of the time, the answer is a clear and immediate no. Let that be your compass. Seneca put it with characteristic directness. He said that we treat time as if we have an endless supply of it, postponing, delaying, assuming there is always tomorrow. But he observed that time is the one resource that, once spent, cannot be recovered. The Stoic practice of memento mori doesn't make life darker, it makes it sharper. It cuts away the noise and leaves only what matters: relationships, growth, virtue, contribution, experience, not the argument on social media. Not the approval of strangers, not the petty grievance you've been carrying for 6 months. 3. Brain habit. 3. The dichotomy of control. Stop fighting what you cannot change. Epictetus opened his great work, the Enchiridion, or the Manual, with one of the most powerful sentences ever written. Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Epictetus, Enchiridion, he started there because he believed this distinction, and truly internalizing it was the entire foundation of a peaceful, powerful life. Here's how to apply this today. When something disturbs you, stress at work, an argument, a plan falling apart, a rejection, pause and ask 2 questions. First, is this in my control? Can I directly change this through my own choices and actions? Second, if not, can I change my response to it? The answer to the second question is always yes, always. No matter what happens to you externally, your interpretation, your response, your attitude, these remain yours. No circumstance, no person, no event can take that from you unless you surrender it. Epictetus knew this from brutal personal experience. He was born a slave. He lived under conditions of genuine suffering and powerlessness. And yet he became one of the freest minds in history because he understood that external chains are not the deepest kind of imprisonment. Daily practice. Keep a simple 2-column note. When something bothers you today, write it down. Then classify it in my control or not in my control. For the second column, practice releasing it. For the first column, take action. This simple habit, practiced daily, will fundamentally change how you experience stress within a week. The tragedy of modern anxiety is that most of it is spent on things in the second column. We exhaust ourselves worrying about what other people think, about economic conditions we can't change, about the past which is permanently sealed, about the future which exists only as imagination. The Stoic practice of the dichotomy of control doesn't eliminate difficulty. It eliminates unnecessary suffering, and that is an enormous gift to give yourself. 4. Fearful face habit. 4. Negative visualization. The counterintuitive path to gratitude. This next habit will seem, at first glance, like the opposite of what every modern self-help book tells you to do. Instead of visualizing the best-case scenario, the Stoics recommended regularly imagining the worst. The Stoics called this practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Seneca was its most eloquent advocate. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Seneca hears what this practice actually does and why it's far more sophisticated than it sounds. First, it removes the power of fear. When you have calmly, rationally imagined losing something, your job, your health, a relationship, you realize two things. One, it's survivable. And two, you have been taking that thing completely for granted. Second, it produces genuine gratitude, not the shallow kind of gratitude that comes from reading an inspirational quote, but the deep, bone-level appreciation that comes from truly feeling, even briefly, what it would be like to lose what you have. Seneca wrote about this personally. He would periodically practice days of deliberate poverty, eating simply, dressing plainly, removing comforts, so that he could feel viscerally what it meant to have them. And he reported that after such periods, ordinary life felt like extraordinary abundance. Practice 5 minutes once a week. Choose something important to you, your health, your home, a person you love, your ability to work, and spend 5 minutes genuinely imagining losing it. Not to torture yourself, but to ask, if this were gone, how would I feel? And knowing that, how should I treat it now while I have it? Then return to your life with fresher eyes. There is also a practical element to this. The Stoics used negative visualization to prepare for actual adversity. By mentally rehearsing difficulties, they were not caught off guard when they arrived. They had already, in some sense, lived through them. The shock was reduced. The recovery was faster. In modern psychology, this is called stress inoculation, and it's used by elite military units, top athletes, and surgeons to perform under extreme pressure. The Stoics invented it 2,000 years ago. They just called it wisdom. 5 notebook habit, 5 evening journaling. The Stoic practice of self-examination. We know Marcus Aurelius kept a journal. The Meditations is that journal, but he wasn't unique among the Stoics in this practice. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius that function essentially as a philosophical journal. And both he and Epictetus spoke explicitly about the importance of nightly self-examination. I make use of this opportunity, advocating my own cause and acting as my own judge. When the light has been put out and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. Seneca, this is the evening review, and it is not about self-criticism. It is about self-awareness. There is a crucial difference. Self-criticism asks, why am I so bad at this? Self-awareness asks, what actually happened today and what can I learn from it? The Stoic evening journal asks 3 questions, and I want you to write these down. 1. What went well today? Where did I act in accordance with my values? Where did I show patience, discipline, or courage? 2. Where did I fall short? Not to punish yourself, but to see clearly. Where did you react rather than respond? Where did you say something you didn't mean? Where did you waste time? 3. What will I do differently tomorrow? 1 specific thing. Not 5, not 10. 1. Make it concrete and actionable. 10 minutes every evening before sleep. What this practice builds over time is extraordinary self-knowledge. You begin to see your own patterns, the triggers that derail you, the conditions under which you thrive, the recurring mistakes that you keep making because you've never examined them clearly. Marcus Aurelius spent decades doing this. Read Meditations and you'll see the same themes appear again and again, because he kept returning to his own weaknesses with honesty and without self-pity, trying to close the gap between who he was and who he wanted to be. That gap never fully closes for any of us, but the practice of looking at it clearly every evening, that is what it means to be a philosopher in the Stoic sense. Not someone with degrees and theories, but someone who is actively daily working on themselves. 6. Cold face habit. 6. Voluntary discomfort. Training the inner fortress. This is the habit that separates philosophy from practice. That separates people who find Stoicism intellectually interesting from people who actually become stronger because of it. Seneca wrote something that should make every comfort-addicted modern person sit up straight. Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? Seneca, letters to Lucilius. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, deliberately choosing difficult conditions, for one core reason. They wanted to know in their bones, not just in their minds, that they could handle hardship. Because here's what comfort actually does to us, if we're being honest, it makes us fragile. Every time we avoid discomfort, the difficult conversation, the hard workout, the uncomfortable silence, the cold shower, we are training ourselves to run from hard things. And life, inevitably, will bring hard things. The Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort is about building what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel, a fortress of the self that cannot be taken by external circumstances. The practice itself doesn't have to be extreme. Start small, a cold water at the end of your shower, not to suffer, but to practice choosing discomfort. Skip a meal occasionally, sit with hunger, realize you are not in danger, have the conversation you've been postponing. Do the work you've been avoiding, do 1 day per month, no streaming, no social media, no entertainment, just presence. Each time you do this, you prove something to yourself. You prove that you are capable of more than comfort allows you to believe. And that proof, accumulated over weeks and months, changes how you walk through the world. You stop fearing difficulty. You start trusting yourself. You become, in the most literal sense of the word, resilient. Motivation is temporary. Resilience is permanent. Voluntary discomfort builds the second. 7 handshake habits, 7 amor fati in service. Love what is. Give what you can. I saved this one for last because I believe it contains the deepest wisdom of all, and it's the one most often missed in conversations about Stoicism. The first part is amor fati, a phrase made famous by Marcus Aurelius and later championed by Friedrich Nietzsche. It means love of fate. Do not seek for things to happen as you wish. Wish for things to happen as they do happen, and you will find tranquility. Epictetus' amor fati goes one step further than simple acceptance. It says, don't merely tolerate what happens to you, find a way to love it, to see it as necessary, to understand that every obstacle, every failure, every loss is part of the fabric of your life, and your life is the only one you have. The second part is service. This is perhaps the least discussed aspect of Stoic practice, and it is vital. Marcus Aurelius believed profoundly that human beings are social creatures made to help one another. He wrote repeatedly about our duty to those around us, not as an obligation, but as a natural expression of our best nature. Every day, find one way to be useful to someone else, not for recognition, not for reciprocity. Simply because the Stoics believed that a life turned only inward, however disciplined, however reflective, is incomplete. The final practice at the end of each day asked, did I love what happened today, even the difficult parts? And did I contribute something to someone other than myself? These 2 questions, asked honestly, will tell you more about the quality of your day than any productivity metric ever could. The close 1 habit, 1 week, 1 life. 7 habits, 2,000 years of tested wisdom. The morning review, memento mori, the dichotomy of control, negative visualization, evening journaling, voluntary discomfort, amor fati in service. Now here's my one request. Don't try to implement all 7 tomorrow. That's not how change works. That's how burnout works. Pick one, just one, the one that resonated most deeply with you. The one that, when you heard it, some part of you recognized, I need this. Practice it for 1 week, every day, without exception. And then, if it worked, if it shifted something, come back and add another. Marcus Aurelius didn't build his character in a day. He built it through thousands of small, consistent choices. That's all any of us can do. That's enough. Confine yourself to the present. Marcus Aurelius. If this video found you at the right moment, if something here reached you, please share it with someone who might need it. That's all I ask. Until next time, keep practicing.